Good evening. We'll call the regular Board of Education meeting to order and have roll call, please.
Dyke.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Frisbee absent. Maycumber. Here. Wintering. Here. Salinas absent.
Agenda item 2, the reading of the mission statement by Director Winterick.
Our mission is to engage, inspire, and empower students and staff in order to maximize learning.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, approval of the agenda. Do we have any additions or corrections, Dr. Cox?
No, I mean, you have the newest version of the agenda that was pushed out, so I believe Alyssa Kruger's name doesn't appear on the one that probably is photocopied for the public, but it was republished or resent and posted. So that would be 8th grade English language arts.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented, please.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Roll call vote, please.
Wintering.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Maycumber. Yes. Dyke.
Yes. Motion carried 4-0. Agenda item 4 is to welcome the visitors and have public comment. As we begin our agenda tonight, I'll explain our process for public comment. The board will hear comments from the public in conjunction with each agenda item using a structured process. As board president, I will ask for comments when we reach that item on the agenda. You will be asked to approach the microphone, state your name, and limit your comments to 2 minutes. At this time, I invite any member of the audience to step up to the microphone with comments about items of interest or concern that do not appear on tonight's agenda. Please begin by stating your name and contact information. It would be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 2 minutes so that we can keep the meeting moving in a timely fashion and allow others an opportunity to speak, as well as allowing the board to complete the full board agenda in a timely manner. Comments from the public are limited to matters within the board's authority. Please understand that we as a board cannot discuss items not already on the agenda. Iowa's Sunshine Law prohibits us from having a discussion without the proper notice to all of the school district community that the issue would be discussed at tonight's board meeting. Also, please remember, you are making comments in a public meeting. Should you make comments that the subject of the comments considers to be inflammatory or libelous, you as an individual may be subject to legal action brought by the subject of your comments. We thank you for your support of our school district. Are there any comments from the public this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 5, comments by board members and superintendent. We'll begin with Dr. Cox, who has a wide list of things going on.
Thank you. So we start with Teacher Appreciation Week and Nurse Appreciation Week this week, so we celebrate that fact. We had the class of 17 experience a really neat opportunity last week to take what they've been learning the past 13 years and really apply that to life outside of school in an activity called Adulting 101. And we appreciate the local and regional press coverage as we engage, inspire, and empower our students for life after graduation. As of just this afternoon at our district Facebook page, the post about that Adulting 101 had reached over 34,000 people. Not bad for a community of 7,500. This Friday, we are honored to be hosting Ryan Wise, who is the director of the Iowa Department of Education, and he will be accompanied by Diane Crookham Johnson, who is a member of the State Board of Education in Iowa. She's also an alumna of Charles City High School. And also accompanying them will be Jeremy Varner, and he's head of the Community College Division at the Iowa Department of Education. It's a busy time of year with golf and track and tennis sectionals and district and conference meets all taking place. We also have a high school vocal concert tomorrow night at the North Grand Auditorium. And then lastly, a reminder to the public that in 2 weeks, the board again will be traveling. We will be at the Caldwell Community Center, 6:30 p.m. Up in Caldwell.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members this evening?
Wanted to thank the 19th Amendment Society, the Carrie Cat Chapman group for honoring Lorraine and I at a luncheon for the elected women. It was very nice. Amanda Reagan was our speaker for the day and met a lot of past board member and elected officials that had some interesting advice and a good heart and some sympathy that they understood, a good understanding heart.
You're right, Robin, I'll add to that. It was real interesting to meet some of those women who had served on the school board years before and hear the history of women serving in elected offices in Floyd County. And it was quite an honor to be recognized.
I wanted to comment on the proceedings 2 weeks ago that we had, mostly for those watching at home. But and I know I've said it at this table before, but you know the impact of Facebook and in our society and in our community. Over 40 people took the time to comment on a article or a headline written by the press, Charles City Press. In that time, I had only 3 people personally contact me. 2 of them just sought out questions like they should, like I asked for always. Those other 40 people, most of it was just, you know, bantering back and forth with a number of pieces of misinformation. That kind of stuff's not only disrespectful to those of us that spend a lot of time to make these really hard decisions, it's disrespectful to the teacher that was the subject of the hearing. You know, I read a number of things that were inappropriate, not accurate regarding him as well. So, you know, those watching at home, anyone else, please take the time to contact us. You know, I will always take the time to justify my vote, no matter which way it went, and I have no problem doing that. I don't have no problem if you scream in my face and yell at me. I would prefer you do that than to read that stuff online. So, my annual or semi-annual rant on Facebook ends. So, thank you.
That rant could probably be said by all of us at this table from time to time. Appreciate that. It's been a busy couple weeks for me, most of which we'll hit on in committee reports and other agenda items later on as we continue. We'll move on to committee reports, buildings and grounds.
Is there public comment?
Did that. Buildings and grounds, we've met a couple of times, I think, actually, since the last meeting. Made substantial progress on the North Grand building agreement. So I think we are virtually complete, made some great headway with that, and I would look to just hopefully see that here in the near future come up. Otherwise, Jerry's continuing to line up his summer help. He's got a number of projects lined up for the summer, and he's got a good crew, it looks like, to get a lot of those accomplished. So extremely busy time. Bus barn progress, you can drive by it every day or hopefully every few days to see it. It's really progressing. They've got a water issue they're trying to work out with some testing, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we're still on schedule for this summer to be open.
Thank you. Communications and public relations.
We also met, and one of the things that has been talked about at the board table previously is perhaps having a board member listening post opportunity. So there is an option on Saturday, May 20th, if that works with any board member schedules. And if that does end up working, then we'll push that out through our communications channels. But just an opportunity, as Director Walker stated, for people who have questions to approach and ask and hear the answers.
I'll still be out of town on that Saturday morning, but
Yeah.
if anyone else is,
I'm out of town.
we're looking this way.
It's possible.
Possible, yeah.
Possible.
Possible.
So we'll push that out if it ends up being a yes.
Okay.
Finance have not had one, trying to, what, are we on our
I think we're on
fourth
for
version
Wed-
of trying to schedule a
Aren't
time?
we on for Wednesday afternoon?
No.
Yeah, as long as Scott replies.
Okay.
Well,
We're struggling
We'll
to
figure it
find a
out.
time. Negotiations and compensation, Robin.
As you'll see down on our agenda item number 14, we have been working. We meet with confidential secretaries and administrative staff on Tuesday. Should be wrapping up here, I would say, by the next board meeting for sure. So in the next couple weeks.
Okay. Policy committee, we had a meeting, and one of the things that we're looking at is bringing forth a policy, an actual board policy that specifies at which dollar limit students would not be allowed to eat or buy breakfast or lunch, along with the other policies that need to be updated this year in the rotation. Yeah, right now, that policy has a $30 limit in it. If board members or other people have other suggestions, we're open to those opinions before we meet again. No other committee reports. Moving on to agenda item 7, job shadowing report. Director Walker went to Lincoln.
Yeah, I actually kind of doubled up on this one and had a phenomenal experience. I went on a Thursday afternoon and watched my third grader Bryce do a presentation on animal report in his whole class. And then the next day also did the afternoon with Sandy Plagencool and spent an hour with her, and they were doing a math lesson. It's just such a, it was like I had hoped it to be, a great experience to be in the classroom and to see what good things are going on in there. So, with this, I wanted to bring back or take out of something that I was really, really impressed with. And, they were working on math problems, and they broke into groups, and they each, took turns with their partner working through the problems. But then they were held accountable for their answers up at the board, and they were, they stood at the board and presented their findings to the rest of the class. And then the class, they were able to call on their peers to agree or disagree with them. The fact that we're teaching our third graders to stand up in front of the classroom, in front of a group of their peers, and present that kind of stuff, and they were all did a really, really comfortable job of it. I think that skill is something that I'm just so impressed we're teaching at the third grade level right now. So I had a great experience, and I can't thank Sandy enough for letting me come in.
Rain, you went to Washington.
I did. I was fortunate enough to go to first grade, and I chose their reading block of time to go. I feel like reading is the foundation of all of our learning, and the thing you should learn first in school, and was able to really dig in to understand how kids are learning to read. And the block for a reading is just very nearly just shy of 2 hours. It's quite an extensive period of time, which I was happy to see. And so as I arrived, the kids had already been engaged, and they were sitting on the floor, crisscross applesauce, and they were doing a play. They were taking turns reading a little play. It was just a couple of pages, but again, like you said, they were in front of their peers. They were reading out loud. That was the first thing that I observed. And then they had time to do 3 different series of teaming up with a buddy, which the buddy had already been pre-selected before I got there. So they had a means to do that. So it was real simple. Everybody got a chance to share buddies. And so then the kids had the chance to either go on these colorful little rugs in first grade and read to themselves with the help of a CD player and headphones, or go to a computer and read with the headphones assisting as they read along, or team up with a friend, or they could, just read alone, if they wanted to. And so they took turns doing that, and the teacher would ring the little bell she had, and they would rotate to the next station and do something else. But at some point, their little reading group would meet with Jolynn Eastman, who I had been in Jolynn's class, and they would read for her and either determine, did they need to move up, did they need to stay at the same level. She was checking for fluency and comprehension, and I was happy to watch one little first grader get his first chapter book. He was thrilled to be moving up, and they have these book boxes in the classroom with all of their names so that they can kind of shop within the classroom for all of these books, and then those are the books that they read for the week, and they don't take them home, but they have plenty of reading time in class. So then I had the opportunity to read one of my favorite books, If You Give a Pig a Pancake, and that was kind of fun, and they loved the story. So, It was really a fun thing to see. I can say that, you know, watching first grade, watching Jolynn Eastman, as well as I popped in and said hello to some of the other first grade teachers that are on the team. We've got a lot of good fluent readers out there, and I think they're going to do very well. So I was proud to see that.
Thank you. Robin, you also went to Lincoln.
I did, and I was honored to sit in on Mr. Jen's math lesson. They were working on fractions. My, that made my head, sitting with some fourth graders, I could do it just like this. It wasn't long, though. I felt like I might have caught up with them a little bit. It was, Mr. Jen's class was a little interesting, and he had a little bit of a challenge, but it was interesting to watch how he handled it and how effectively he handled it. There were 6 students at a time that were being pulled out to go and try out instruments. So 6 of those students would go out, and he was trying to teach a lesson, and then those 6 students would come back in, and he'd have to catch them back up, and the other 6 that were caught up would have to go back out, and then, you know, back and forth. But at the end of it, everybody was at the same, at the end of that, I don't know how he did it, but he managed to get it all at the same, everybody was at the same level, everybody understood the lesson, and I knew we were gearing up for Adulting 101, and my thought came to mind, here's a lesson that these seniors would have learned in 4th grade that they're going to use today, because obviously fractions are an important part of our daily lives. I know in my life and my work every single day I have to use fractions to figure things out or cook or anything like that. So, but I was really pleased. We have some awesome teachers. Mr. Gent is a first-year teacher, and I know I can't imagine what he must have felt when a board member wrote his name out and said, "Here I am." Here she comes. But it was great. They did awesome, and I'm very appreciative of the teachers that we have.
Thank you. And I went to the middle school, to 7th and 8th grade band, and actually, rather than go to lessons, I went to band class last week, and since I'm not going to be able to make the concert next week, I've already had a prelude to everything you're going to hear, and based upon what I heard, it'll be a great performance. Had a couple of the students explain the songs to me and go through the entire process. One of the things that was said in the class, and from years ago in college, Mrs. Boss had heard that the only place you can actually hear learning happening is in music classes. Now, with everything we have going on today, I'm not 100% sure if that's accurate, but
It's pretty easy to hear.
it's pretty easy to hear it in music classes from the beginning of the period to the end of the period. The music always gets better. And I appreciate Mrs. Boss and her class for allowing me to sit in with them. I also kind of did a double duty last week and was unable to attend the Monday night orchestra performance, so I sat in with Mrs. Western, since this is her last year of orchestra, on Friday morning as well, and was listening to their performances that they were working on. I believe they had a contest on Saturday, so, and they got a Division I, so of course that was excellent to hear in the music wing. And I always remind the music teachers, it's been a really long time since I had a music class, and I don't know how to read music, but I enjoy listening to the classes and their performances. So thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to sit in on music classes. Time to do a drawing for
Now
the,
it's time to draw for the month of May.
Now, are we gonna make a rule that you try to get a different building than what you previously had, or do you wanna just roll with whoever it is?
Just roll.
Okay.
I have Tara Dean in music at the middle school.
there you go. I'll just take the one on top.
I think from doing this already, we're learning an appreciation for our teachers, even more so. And after being in first grade, and I suspect it's the same in all of these classes, teaching is definitely an endurance test.
I have Marla Rima and special ed at the middle school.
Oh. Did you
No.
pick your wife?
No, she did.
I did.
No training.
And I picked Liz Platty, so we both have 5th grade.
We both-
Well, there are high school names in there, I will
Okay.
attest to that.
Well,
Is
2
some-
times now, no, but
I know.
We'll go with it.
this fall,
Yep.
we'll,
We're just moving up the grades.
there
We
you
are
go.
slowly.
Okay, so everyone needs to go to their respective teachers and rooms and report back at the first meeting in June. Okay, after listening to us talk for 20 minutes, it is now time for agenda item 8, courtyard presentations by middle school. And we know we're going to enjoy this one probably more than we have the last 20 minutes in speaking. So we will let the middle school,
I am very excited about this.
yep,
Yes.
we all are.
Waiting.
Now we got to make sure that you use the microphone
Okay.
so that everybody at home and here can hear us. If we need to take it off the stand, you can do whatever you need to with the mic.
Okay.
Okay?
Or you can move the stand that direction too if you want.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Yep, just move whatever you need to do.
Like maybe this?
We're flexible.
Okay, Keisha, right here. Okay, Keisha, what's our group's name?
Got 4 hearts.
Yeah, our Four Hearts group. And who were the people in your group?
Carter Hansen, Kelly McWilliams, Keisha Fritz.
Great job. Okay, so many of my students have some verbal communication issues, so I was volunteered to be the speaker for them. So my associates helped them with this. Mr. Lundberg did a ton of help with them. Mrs. O, God bless her, she helped us a ton with it. So this project is a huge passion in our classroom. They worked very, very hard to include every single student in our class. So we are very, very, very excited about our presentation. Keisha, can you read the top of this one?
Purpose.
The purpose of our courtyard project was for recreation. Our classroom is 4 walls that are very tight a lot of the days. We have 13 students in our room right now, and so as much as the middle school will use it, we also try to make it as an extension to our classroom. So you'll see in our project some different areas that we really hope to use every single day, as often as we possibly can. Many things that are in our project are very wheelchair accessible. Not only do we have 2 children in wheelchairs, obviously, our crazy one, who Kelly is very, very independent, and so we'd like it to be as accessible for her as possible. But there's also a student in the elementary who is coming up in a wheelchair, and then we also gain students, as you know, very quickly, so we just want it to be as accessible for all students as possible. Relaxation, one of our students naps every day, and so we put some trees out there, and we thought we could take our nap mats out there and she could nap outside. Just some of our students need just a break. All of our students would love to be outside. So that was part of our relaxation. Education, we're doing that right now. We take our whole class outside at least 1 period a day and just take our books out there or whatever we're working on, sensory activities, anything we can, we get outside. This nice weather has really helped us out. And the main focus was we wanted something for everyone. Handicap accessible, we put some raised garden beds in ours. We tried to use as many recyclable items as possible, and then we also wanted it to be sustainable. So as little Joel work as possible was our thought. All right, Keisha, what's this one about?
Budget for equipment.
The budget for the equipment, that's right. So this is just a rough estimate, but so we put a wooden handicap swing. That is our favorite part, right, Cal? How excited are you for the budget, or for the handicap swing? super pumped, right?
You bet.
Okay, so the handicap swing, you'll see a picture of it soon, but what happens with this, we were hoping that maybe our Woods class could build this, we found some plans online, but the swing has a bench across from it, so you could fit 3 students or grown adults across from it. A ramp comes down, the wheelchair would drive up on it, we could fit 2 wheelchairs beside the curves on there, and then it closes back up, and then it swings back and forth. So we were really, really, really excited about that. That was our favorite part, so we thought that was definitely number 1 on our thing. Both picnic tables that we found are both handicap accessible, which have an opening in them so that you can put, the wheelchairs can roll right up into them. Keisha, can you find those on our board for us and show them where those are at? Our picnic tables? Where were those at? Do you remember? Yep, right there. Where's the other one? The blue one and the black one. Yep, great job. Okay, so then there's a water fixture. We thought that would be fun. We put some concrete stages. We do a lot of performing in our classroom. And also we thought just some presentation. Mr. Wolf, he's our audience a lot of the time. We bring Mr. Wolf down. Kelly. We also put some drinking fountains that we were also really excited about. There is a drinking fountain that's regular size, and there's also a drinking fountain that's lower, and then Kelly could roll right up to it and push it so she could access it herself. So we were really excited about that. And then we also added the labor, approximately $2,000. Okay, Keisha, next one. Oh, never mind, no, where's the next one? Okay, so here's the handicap swing we were talking about, right there. And the water fountain, you can obviously see that. And those are the 2, obviously picnic tables that we found that the wheelchairs come up to. And we were talking, Kelly's 14, right, Kelly? 14 years old, and she's never been to a picnic table like that. So we thought that would be a pretty great experience for our students here to have those at their school. And can be included. And the other thing that we also is that you can put a chair on those. So when a student isn't in a wheelchair, you could just set a chair there and it would do the same purpose. Okay, but Keisha, can you read us this one?
Budget for plants.
Budget for plants. So this is where Mr. Lumber comes into play here, is my understanding anyways. Found us some plants that didn't need a lot of maintenance. So you can read those for yourself there. And then the kids found the pictures online and we printed those so you can look at them. We went really colorful because a lot of my students are very into color. So we found as much color as we possibly could. And we also included some trees that would provide that shade that we were talking about earlier. Maintenance, we kind of covered this already too, but we needed little maintenance, and they could handle a lot of sun, but and they didn't need much water. Good job. So, and then like we said, we're trying to keep Joel as little as we needed him in there. An idea that we had was to sell bricks on this path. Keisha, can you show them where the path's going to be on the board? This path, we thought we could sell these bricks for approximately, I don't know, we were thinking between like $50 and $75 and have them engraved. The brick comes at $18 at cost, and then they can have 3 lines. And so just an idea that the students had to pay for some of it. The brick path was really important to the students so that we could get the wheelchairs out there. The problem that we're having right now, Kelly goes out in a walker because we can't get a wheelchair down the hump that we have outside our classroom, so we take her out in our walker, and then we kind of push her around, but she can't really go very far out there right now, so she's stuck at the mercy of us. And then there's a kind of an ugly drain out there right now, so our idea was to have that new metal cutter down there to do some sort of design. We're hoping it to be Comet affiliated somehow or another, and we thought maybe we could have a contest that the students could draw it and then have it cut somehow like that. So that is our presentation. Do you have any questions?
I think the brick idea is genius as a way
Yes.
to generate some money and give people kind of an ownership in that courtyard area.
Yeah, we thought so too.
Which courtyard?
Right here, right
This
there.
one, right here?
Right
Okay.
here, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, great job, guys.
I
Excellent.
like it.
Yeah.
Very good.
Will you leave the board? Or,
Can we see the board?
well, just so we can look at it maybe afterwards or
Yeah.
something. So. Thanks.
Thank you.
actually have our slideshow printed out if you want to go.
Okay.
Do you guys have that? You need this clicker.
You can put that like right here, maybe. Awesome.
Oh, wow, another one here.
Hello, I'm Cade Williams.
Kayla Ziska.
Danielle Reitz.
And I'm okay.
We need to ask you to use the
You
microphone.
have to use the mic.
Sorry.
That way they can hear you at home when we get to watch
On
you get on
TV.
TV.
I'm Danielle Reitz.
And I'm Graham.
And who's speaking first?
Go ahead, up
You
to the
need to use the
microphone.
microphone though. Sorry.
Here.
Okay. Hello, we are CCED, and our goal is to find the most useful product for the courtyard. It has to be comfortable and suitable for all staff and students. We want to make this our best opportunity.
Right now, our courtyard looks very just dead and not alive or kid friendly at all.
So we plan to make the courtyard like student teacher friendly by the following things.
First off, we want to cover up all the grass with some black wood mulch, which it'll be less to maintain and it'll look better. And that'll cost $7.34 for the mulch.
And what wouldn't be covered by the mulch would be a path made of grayish pavers. The path would cover most of the courtyard, keeping people off the mulch and making a sturdy place for tables and chairs.
To bring some color to the place, we want to add orange coneflowers placed around the path, also comets, and the cost would be $577.17.
For shading, we want to plant crabapple trees. By planting the trees, we're also bringing back the old middle school that Mr. White said there are some planted there, and the cost will be $45.96.
And last, we want to add a little more plant life. So to do so, we'll have 4 bushes, and the cost will be $136.
Including labor, our total cost would be $14,107.45.
Up here, we have our blueprint of what we think the courtyard should look like.
And so this is the drawing that we made, and so this is the center drain that, like she explained, that they were going to cover up.
Kale,
And, yeah.
can you grab the mic? Actually, just take it off the stand and then
Yeah,
use the mic to
just
talk.
Grab the mic.
Otherwise, they can't hear you.
On TV.
Okay, so in the middle we have the drain, and these are all the pavers that we have that Danny explained. We have our 4 tables that we can pull up 4 chairs to, and we have our 4 bushes right here, and black mulch covering up everything else. We have the 2 trees on the sides, and then all the flowers and like the decorations, I guess you could say, will be on the sides, and then the 2 doors are down here. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you for listening to our pitch.
Thank you.
Very good.
Very good.
Oh, any questions?
I don't think so.
Well, they've solved the mowing issue
Yeah.
by
There you go.
covering it with mulch and stone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just have to, coneflowers are quite prolific, we just have to each year.
have to just
And
put some tarp underneath all that mulch.
No, excellent.
I love the black and
Beautiful.
orange color.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right, well, my name is Jillian Anderson.
My name is Marley Haggerty.
My name's Sydney Peterson.
And I'm Sophie Nettleton.
All right, so our goal for this project was to create a space that you could learn outside in, and you can do homework out there, and it will just be a more relaxing setting to do your homework and stuff.
Our first thing was to have daylilies out there, and the cost for that would be $14.98. We plan on putting those in front of the pavilion to add decoration and color.
Next, the crab apple tree would cost $24.98, and we plan on putting it on the side of the benches and podium to add some shade.
All right, we want folding chairs in the pavilion for seating while working on assignments and homework, and you can get 12 for $125.98.
We want 2 picnic tables with umbrellas for some shade for children who have to do homework or they have an award to just go out there and work. The cost for 2 is $99.14.
Another suggestion we have is to have a whiteboard that be used either for students to do work on or teachers to give lessons. The cost for one is $75.71.
We need 12 wood benches to go around the podium for the students to sit in while the teachers are teaching. The cost for those for 12 is $840.
We would want the teachers to have a desk or stand of some sort, so it would be placed in front of the benches so they can teach. It would cost $89.99.
We would want something to have a building-like feature, but it's still outside, so we would want to have a pavilion behind the benches. We would want this to be used as a workspace for students. It costs $2,299.95.
We would like to have a picnic table inside the pavilion for students to work at, and possibly for students to eat at. The cost for one is $98.
We would also want to add a couch in there for some sort of a relaxing area. It would be placed in the pavilion as well, and it would cost $669.49.
Also in the pavilion, we would put a storage bin to store the couch cushions in for rain or just to put them in there overnight. It would cost $65.49.
We would want to have something more than just grass and cement, so we would put stepping stones on each side.
That was a great job there. I love the idea of having some grass, but not so much of it, so that Joel isn't a slave to that grass. Or I know I saw Mr. Lundberg out there before the school was open, cutting the grass out there. So something that is a little bit easier to take care of, that has color, that could be an outdoor classroom, as well as flexible for, like you mentioned, just having lunch or just studying out there. So I think a blend of all their ideas.
Yeah, the work that each of the 3 groups went through in their design and concept, I think, was spectacular. All a little different, but the research and the detail that all 3 of them put into it was phenomenal, especially finding out what it's going to cost for city building permits and whatever, going that extra mile. Some of our Adulting 101 has taken place in the middle school on preparing for this presentation tonight, with all of the costs associated with this project. So thank you very much, all 3 of you groups, for the work that you did. To be commended for all of your ideas and your research and your presentation. Job well done.
And again, to the teachers who helped orchestrate that. So
yes.
to Mr. White, Ms. O'Halloran, Ms. Ackenbach, all of your support of the students in this process.
Yes,
Well, thank you for
absolutely.
that. It's been no small task.
No.
Yes.
I know that.
Yeah.
To help them get to this point.
So it is an action item this evening. if we would like to ask for further revisions on one or more of the proposals, or if you'd prefer that we turn it over to Buildings and Grounds Committee and allow them an opportunity to work with the three groups or have conversations to see if there can be a blending, even potentially of the three proposals.
I make a motion to refer it to Buildings and Grounds for review of all three projects and to come up with a final implementation plan.
Yeah, I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to refer the courtyard presentations by the middle school students to the Buildings and Grounds Committee for further review and to come back with a final proposal. Any other discussion? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Walker?
Yes.
Maycumber?
Yes.
Winnering?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes. Motion carried 4-0. Again, thank you very much. You'll be hearing from these two board members in the near future.
Yes. We'll get-
Thank you.
Love it. Now we don't have to worry about
Now
what
we
we're
need to
going
get
to do
rid
with the
of
goals.
these. We want to get rid of these boards before we
It's
move
all right.
on. or leave them?
They're okay.
You want to leave them up, or?
Just
They're
leave them,
okay.
they're fine.
We'll leave them.
You don't have to keep my legs crossed.
We'll give the students a few minutes to,
All right, give you something to cut out, not something to cut out. Sorry. You probably won't catch it.
so we'll move on to agenda item 9, the 21st Century Schools Task Force Report. And we'll let Dr. Cox start.
So for approximately the past 8 weeks, we have had a task force that has been meeting to look at the direction for our Phase 2 project, going out and really engaging in that process, the same process that we did 3 years ago with the middle school, making site visits to new construction and renovated schools, coming back with ideas that we could then incorporate with the architects to put together the plan that eventually developed into this middle school. So we've got a number of task force members here tonight who are going to make a presentation to you about what they've been learning, what they've been seeing over the course of the past 8 weeks. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Johnson, our high school principal.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cox. First of all, just want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to get together with this group and to explore these things. It's been a really cool experience to have, several meetings to talk about the future of Charles City at the high school and some of those things. About 3 years ago this spring, before I started working here, I was invited up to a work session at the high school. I almost called it the old high school. The high school library, and we started to talk about the red, orange, purple plan, all these different things, and I got a taste of what this school district was about in terms of designing a school and getting the community involved. There were several community members, there were a lot of students there, a lot of teachers, some of you as board members were there. It was a really eye-opening experience for me personally. I knew that I had made the right decision to come to Charles City in that experience because of what I was going to be able to do in helping design where we're standing now, and then hopefully a high school someday. So that's a process that we're beginning, and it's exciting. It's obviously very at the beginning, but I just appreciate the opportunity to be involved in this. It's a pretty cool experience. So we got a lot of representatives here today, so I'm going to go through my part very quickly, simply because I think it's very important to hear from the staff and the community members that took time to go on some of these visits. I know we don't have a lot of time for this particular presentation. I don't know how many slides we ended up with. So we're going to have to take about 2 seconds per slide in order to get through all of them. Justin threw them all together for us. So a little bit about the process that we've used. Early on, Dr. Cox had given us a list of here are some potential visiting places to visit in terms of model buildings and really starting to look at a similar process to what we used when we started researching the middle school. And we had a list together, several community members, I think, do you know what the task force was in total?
There were about 51 invited and probably 28 who took part at some point in the process.
So we started to narrow our focus to some of the different buildings based on recommendations and our own research into where we would like to go and kind of organize that way. But really, when you're looking at what we're trying to do as a process, we're really out there just looking for what we can steal from people. There's so many model schools out there in the states around us, in Iowa, all over the country. Anytime that we can go on a visit, we can take one thing back. I think that's a very beneficial use of our time. We tell teachers all the time when they're going to conferences, if you can bring one or two things back that's going to make you a better teacher, then it's money well spent. There's a good return on our investment. So we were really looking at ideas to steal. I think another part of what we were really looking at is what types of buildings are out there that really meet the mission and vision that the path that we're going down as a district. You're sitting in a very good representation of the mission and vision of this district and how our building is a model of how we want to do business. So in terms, there's a couple of quotes here in the one previous. Every district that I went to, every administrator that I was able to talk to was very fond of how much time we were investing in doing things the right way in modeling our district, or in our building. Chanhassen was the first school that I visited, and I think the others will attest to this. They built 7 years, I believe, in their building, they already would build a completely different school in terms of how they want to do business and how they want their students to learn. Took on a whole new path towards personalized learning. Their building needs to be different than what it is already. They even had made comments, we built a very modern high school in terms of how we used to want to do business. So that's a testament to the work that we're all trying to put in to make this go the right way. Their assistant principal also had a quote that I wrote down when we were visiting, is this building has become a symbol of how we want students to learn. They've made some different, and we'll get into their building a little bit more, but they've made some adjustments to the building that they have currently to reach their mission and vision. We're in a spot where we have a new mission and vision. We have a lot of different things happening in our district, and all these things that we are stealing from them and creating our own are a good symbolism of how our building will help us do that. The other part I wanted to share was, and I appreciated Mr. Lundberg's quote in the paper the other day after we had wrapped up our final meeting, about the curriculum and the building are the same. It's not a separate conversation when we go and visit these buildings. Yeah, we want to go see all the cool things they have, and you're going to see about 100 slides of all those neat things, but we also want to see how they do business. And they are one and the same. So that's an important conversation. So when we go to these places, we are also looking to steal ideas about instructional practices, curriculum development, pedagogy, all those different things in those buildings. We're there, and they're one and the same. So I appreciated that quote. So looking for things to engage, inspire, and empower our students. There's a lot of different pieces of evidence that's better shown in pictures than hearing me speak. So hopefully you see that kind of as a theme as we look at some of these different areas that might engage our students. There's some really neat possibilities here. I think at this time we can probably bring up, well, I wanted to also touch on, personally, in these visits, I want to look at things that we have some gaps in our building, things we can't do with our current building, collaborative spaces. The brick walls don't come down very easy. I was laughing with with Mr. Wolf, I think. We've torn down a couple walls in the high school. Brian's art room in the middle, in the commons. We've tried to create bigger spaces in those, but we can only go so far with that, with the brick and mortar that we have within our building. So seeing those collaborative spaces, being flexible, you're going to see that throughout, and I think Sarah and some others are going to talk about some common themes that we saw. A true student hub, true student common area within our building where all the action kind of happens at the start of the day, and there's school store and some of those different things out there. Different design and build stations out there. We have obviously our CTE wing and our art, and music is a design type area. But having those to be a little bit more flexible. A community space that's inviting for the community when they come in. As you know, our outreach in the community has significantly grown here in the last couple of years. We want to continue to do that. But when they come in and learn with us, we want some spaces that are flexible to be able to do that. and some of those other things. And the other thing is some of these schools have some really innovative spaces. You're going to see a black box theater concept in a couple of these schools. If that can be used as a flexible space, it's also offered as a classroom. Those are some really cool opportunities to keep innovating in the way that we want to. A sound mixing and broadcasting room with up-to-date technology. And then I'll just put out there, just overall a technology update to our building would go a long ways in terms of what these schools have to offer. So that's enough from me. The High Tech High group, if you want to come up and we can talk about this, if you want to add to it, I'll get us started if there's anything else we want to talk about there. We had the opportunity to listen to High Tech High's director or principal for about a half hour in our visit out to San Diego to see this school and this program. And I didn't catch the quote completely, but he also used a little bit different word, not a beyond PG word for awesomeness. So I didn't put that in there. But basically his premise was, the question we had asked right away is, if you were building your own school right now, what would be the difference in how you did it? Because they had remodeled an old Air Force base. And he had said, number one, they got to be flexible. But really, it just became, you've got to create spaces where people can create, and not just teachers and students together. So each classroom that you look at, or each area, has to be a place where people can just create awesomeness. And that really was just kind of, it was a broad enough statement, but it also was like, you go through their building and you see that, and you're going to see some pictures here of how everywhere we went there was an opportunity to create something. And that's an important aspect as we look to continue to inspire.
Would you reaffirm for those watching on TV, how many people went to San Diego?
Yeah, we had 2 board members, 2 principals, and 2 teachers. So 6 of us total traveled to San Diego for 48 hours basically, there and back. And got to experience High Tech High campus, which has 3 different buildings that we were able to go into throughout that time.
Thanks.
Okay. So a little bit about High Tech High's environment. You can see you're going to see a lot of student work posted, and that's very intentional. They want to celebrate the different things that their students are doing, but it also is a display of how they teach and learn in their building. It's comprehensive displays of the projects that are completed and how they interdisciplinize things and how they show that off within their building. They happen to have a format that allows a lot of that to happen, to the open ceilings and some of those different things, a lot of wall space where they're able to do that and to show those things off for those students. So you're looking at I wish Mr. Gabe was up here. He did a great job explaining this the other day, the bridge there in the middle and how they kind of crossing over from their freshman, sophomore wing into their junior, senior wing, and that was a student-led project of symbolism, taking that step towards that next endeavor. Every inch of their space is used for instructional purposes. Very much like we were intentional about the design of this building. And I told the group in our last meeting, I love showing new applicants around here and just telling them to stop out here in the meadow and say, now just look around and see, is there any space wasted in this building? Everything's a learning environment. Same thing that we saw there. Some of it they had to manufacture on their own and create. You can see behind me, this is a picture of kids just sitting on a table in the middle of a hallway, creating sails for a project that they were working on. So some of it has been just go out in the hallway and do your thing type of mentality. But also you can see the computer lab right there where they've created a round table there where there can be learning in that area. This is literally the middle of the learning space, basically a hallway type of environment. They do have some traditional classroom type looks to them, equipped with technology. You can see what they need. The glass walls are very intentional, and you can see that a little bit better even in this picture. So teachers who have to be mobile. So they might be in their classroom watching what's going on outside. They might be outside their classroom watching what's going on while these students are working on different projects. So they have to have an open learning environment like that. Very common in a lot of the schools we visited. A lot of interior glass windows, walls, excuse me. Another display of the art, we actually got to talk to one of the art teachers about this project, or a similar project that he was working on. So very neat experience there. This was my favorite display. You can see in the top there, hanging from the ceiling, is a boat that was created by a chemistry class. And it was an interdisciplinary project, and they had taken on to build these boats. You can see on the left-hand side there is the template. It's just subflooring that they put together, and they stitch it together to give themselves a template, and then they build the boats and finish them based on the plans there. That was also hanging on the wall. But a very good, you can just stand there and get a feel of everything that they do at this school based on this project. And then you can walk in the classroom next to it and walk outside and watch the kids actually do it. So it's pretty cool. Probably one of the highlights for me of the building. And then it also shows you how they use their building to display how they want to do business. Everything that you need to know about that project, you can see in that display.
And I just want to say to the other board members too, that was just for this year. This wasn't something that they did every single year this way. This project, these boats like this, that was just for this time period.
Good picture here of a classroom with a lot of activity going on in the front there. You can see how they have this set up as, this is really a business classroom, this is a marketing classroom, this is a design and build classroom in the corner there, and some kids were doing some regular schoolwork in here as well. So this is it's a flexible space in terms of what's happening in there. You can see in most of the classrooms, in fact, I think about every one that I was in, there's a corner of the room where there's different things happening to makerspace areas. So you can create in each of their rooms. I found that pretty interesting. Some of it looked just kind of thrown together there. You can see toolboxes and whatnot, but it was very intentional that those things were at the kids' fingertips. And it was evident throughout their entire building. And then we had a kid who made, I think most of us got t-shirts made by one of their students. Inspired us to get our own t-shirt and heat press and start doing the same kind of thing, because it's actually a really smart idea. The kid had his own cell phone out, swiped our credit cards, and yeah, we walked out of there with brand new t-shirts. So. But he designs them from his computer, takes them to the vinyl cutter, and then right to the heat press and makes t-shirts within 20 minutes. So it was a good comprehensive look at this student. He was a freshman, but it was another idea of how they kind of want to teach and learn within their building. But the spaces, you can kind of see there's a mix of openness, flexible spaces. There's still classrooms, and we talked to a teacher at lunch, and he was very straight with us to say, number one, I have the best classroom that you can ask for. I have everything I need right at my fingertips, but I also need my own classroom. Yeah, I want to go out and create and do plays, and I want to do some different things with my kids, but I still need my own space. And you can look around here, and that was something our teachers were very aware of in our design process. But where am I going to go when I still need to have 25 kids in that learning environment and have that flexibility? Their building allows them to do that. Knowing that about this program quite substantially before we went, you cannot replicate what their building looks like and how they design their building in order to offer these experiences to kids until you're there and see it. But the big thing is talking to their teachers about it. We met a lot of their staff members, and how they explained how they want to do business was very impactful to the experience of, yeah, they got great programs. They're internationally known for what they do with project-based learning, but their building helps them do it. But at the end of the day, if they had an opportunity like we have right now, they'd take it and they'd run with it. And they would do the same things we're doing out around the country to find out where those best ideas are at. So, an amazing experience. And then I just ignored you guys. What do you want to say?
You did great. I'm going to move on to Alexandria.
All right.
Like Mr. Johnson said, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. We had some great travel mates on the 2 trips that I was on, and honestly, I learned so much in a week. It was unbelievable. Alexandria High School was incredible. I think from the moment we walked in, we were very impressed. I think from the moment we walked, or we were just outside and walked in, I think we all thought, wow, we could take this back to Charles City and be happy for the next 50 years with this school. Very impressive look from the outside. I know Robin had said when we were walking up, I think, you know, you can almost envision this school sitting around and utilizing some of the things that we already have, and replacing some of the things that we want to replace. Really, really sharp looking school, and we'll get into some of the pictures. Basically set up in 3 stories. There was an A wing and a B wing. They were exactly the same. They sit side by side. I don't think there's a picture of that. But very sharp looking. I like the contrast between the gray and the exterior and the red brick. I think it's a very sharp looking school from the outside as well as the inside. The cafeteria space here is mind blowing how big it is. It's about as big as a football field, it feels like, on the inside. Really unique donor wall down here on the end that we really, really liked. Around 500 kids eating lunch. And I know I was sitting by some people, and I was just kind of looking at their kids for about 10 minutes as they were eating. And the dynamics of their student population and our students, you know, you could just see how our kids compare to their kids, and how, you know, we have the same students that they have. And with 500 people in that cafeteria and the high ceilings, it was really amazing how quiet it was and how well behaved those students were. It's a great space. This is obviously not during lunch, but throughout the day, this space is utilized by those students. There's individual learning areas kind of along the sides. There's more comfortable couches here. This space was utilized for education and for small groups of students to work literally throughout the day. I never saw this space completely empty. You can kind of see the 3-tiered look from, again, the cafeteria. I took this picture because I loved how this teacher utilized the windows in the classroom as a space to draw, and I believe this was a math class, and then leave that up there. A lot of technology in these classrooms. They feel a lot like high school classrooms, and they feel very customized to the individual teacher. Math, science, English. They did have a desk in there. They did have everything at their fingertips, but they also had an office area, so when they had their prep, their room could be utilized. But they did have their own space with a lot of windows, and you'll see the windows lead to, those other pictures aren't in here, but they do lead to gathering spaces like this. If you can imagine this room, this school is set up exactly like this room, except it's straight across. There's classrooms on the sides. There's a few individual rooms here. But the middle space is that gathering space. It had the huge staircase where you could also have class too, but very formal, lots of glass around the outside, classroom space. I don't know, does anybody from Alexander have anything else to add? This school, I know it's got a huge price tag, but I said when we were coming back, you know what? We could take, they have huge, a huge population. We can take this school, shrink it down to our needs, take pieces of it that we love, and we can do it for what we want to do it for. And it's a real possibility, and I believe that. An amazing school, and I hope everybody gets an opportunity to go up and take a look at it.
I'll add to that, Brian, that this was the only trip I was able to make and go on, and I mean, even after being involved in the process of this building, I was still blown away by the stuff that went on there, with their spaces and things, the internal windows being huge, all that natural light that came in, utilization space, but the programming that went on at that one too was something I didn't expect to be so blown away with from that facility, that building. There's a lot of just really, really cool things going on with their programming stuff there that I hope that we can continue to look at. Being the only trip I went on, I know I'm anxious to see the rest of these too, and I know there's several others that I wish and I hope that maybe we have the opportunity to load up some bus loads of people and send them up there. Anyone with a negative opinion of us having taken these trips to look at them, I would strongly encourage them to get on a bus and go for the ride, because it's just mind-blowing the stuff that's going on in these other districts that we can pull pieces from and implement here. And that was a really, really, really good one. So.
Hi, Rick Gable, middle school principal. I got to go on the High Tech High visit, and very engaging, inspiring conversations that we had with the teachers there. And almost every teacher we talked to said, well, you have to have a flexible schedule. We've developed a lot of flexibility in our schedule. You have to have a flexible space. Well, we've got that too. You've got to have the ability to co-teach and have time to have common prep time. We've got those things. It was very nice to listen to that from them. So thanks to you guys and the other people from the district that have helped us develop those things. But those are exactly the things that are being pushed at some of these other places as well, I'm sure. But just very gratifying to know we have those opportunities. So that's what I have. Here's Chris.
I'm Chris Hageman from the high school here, and I went to Chanhassen up in Minneapolis. And again, this looks very similar to the Alexandria building. One of the most unique things we saw there was they had they called it flex scheduling. So students, they did not have a study hall, and they also did not hire subs for teachers when they were gone, unless a teacher requested it. Some of their special education had subs, so there still were some subs in the building. But what was done was, if a teacher was going to be gone, rather than having a sub who may not be state certified in chemistry teaching, they would give the assignment via Google Classroom, I believe it was, and everyone was required to use that. And then students were given the assignment, and then they would go to one of these 6 computer stations. They'd scan their ID and then say, hey, I'm going to go work in this gathering space. I'm going to go work here. I'm going to go work here. Once those spaces were full, it would say, nope, that one's closed, and they needed to find somewhere to go meet. And it could also be that even though they're supposed to be in chemistry, they could check a schedule and say, hey, I can go get help from my math teacher during this time, which was a huge benefit. So similar to our Smart Lunch, but it goes on all day long, which was amazing to us. This also was a school that used every inch of space, and there were kids in every inch of that building all day long. One of the unique spaces we saw was coming down some stairs out of their kind of success center, like we have chairs under the stairs. Hallways would have, some modular seating. So there were constantly kids in every part of the building using spaces. Their industrial tech wing, someone might need to help me out on this, I believe had 2 teachers. And how many kids in it? About 60 kids per period. All 3 of their areas were all visible. They had kids in there all periods of the day. They did have 2 periods back to back where the teachers didn't necessarily have kids, so they could collaborate and plan, but they had a very flexible schedule where kids could be taking multiple classes at different times, so that was very fun to see. They also had this 125-seat mini auditorium. I can't remember what they called it, but it was used for multiple things. I think of some of our larger classes that we currently have that are co-taught, where they would use this for that. They've also used it for some of their athletic team meetings. Maybe all of the band would be in there, so that was a fun little bonus space. It is not their auditorium, it was just a 125-seat. Again, they had some traditional classrooms. One of the things they said in this school is everything we build has a flexible space, because what we need today, even in this art room, might not be what we need in 3 years. So again, what can we do to take down walls to make space usable? Again, I think they just added a ton of pottery wheels, which was very fun to see. Again, a very traditional FCS classroom. Many of the schools that we visited were pretty traditional. I feel like that is something that we are already ahead of the game in with our current high school, which is positive to see. This was actually a different school that we visited, St. Michael Albertville, but one of the things were lockers. Many of the schools we visited said kids don't use their lockers. 80% of those lockers are empty all year long. So what Chanhassen said was the bank of lockers where they were, they've taken some of them out and made them into teaching spaces or learning spaces. So that was interesting to see. Again, just very open, lots of windows. Every ounce of, or every inch of that building is being used. Lots of artwork. You see kid involvement all over this building. This was actually also St. Michael Albertville, which was another school that we visited on the same visit. It was a very traditional setup. We walked away, like Mr. Johnson said, building and curriculum go hand in hand. We saw some pretty traditional things there. One of the things they did have in there was, this was a walking track above their 6-court, and it wasn't their main gymnasium, but they had a community facility. My son has played basketball here in years past on the weekends, so that is a community used space, which was fabulous to see. And that was it. Wonderful school.
Veronica and I and a couple others were able to visit the Waukee Innovation and Learning Center, and this was a terrific place. I'm convinced that there's lots of aspects of it that we can adapt right here in Charles City. I'll go to the first one. Go ahead, Veronica.
Yeah, APEX is the name of the program within the Waukee School District that utilizes this specific building. The building holds about the same number of students and is set up for a student body about the same size as Charles City. This particular program is kind of, I'd liken it to our Iowa Big North, except it's all STEM-based. So you'll see that in the classrooms here that all the setups are very much towards STEM-based subjects. There was no auditorium or music or art. Those are done within their main school building. This facility opened last January, so just brand new, January of 17. We were really excited just to see how they were starting to adapt to the space. One of the things they told us with their design process, they wanted to have kind of an industrial and kind of a tech feel a little bit with the building because, again, of the theme of the classes and the things happening in the building. You'll see through all of our pictures, and we'll have a lot of variety of pictures for you to see here just to get a sense of the space, but very open, again, just like a lot of the other buildings, a lot of glass walls, natural light, and very flexible spaces. One of the main themes they really tried to tell us about for them was that flex space and flex use, because their program is new, is growing, and they really wanted to have some ability to change how they use their space. The other unique thing with this program is they do a lot of partnering with community businesses like our Iowa Big North, and so they were trying to set up some spaces here that were collaborative for not just the school district use, but also those business partners.
Yeah, and I think APEX Aspiring Professional Excellence, that's the program that this is based on. And they were out in the community. Some of them weren't in-house that day because they were downtown with professional, like architectural firms and so forth. So anyway, to the left, you'll see the common area. This is what you walk into when you first come in. And it's just huge, and you'll see that there's a lot of furniture. It can all be changed around to fit whatever you're doing. It's very welcoming. Like Veronica said, there's a lot of glass in here. In fact, I don't think that you can hide in this building.
No, there's no hiding.
Unless you're in the bathroom. And that's literally true. There's just nowhere. There's a lot of glass. While we were there, they were already moving around the furniture to suit their own needs. I think down to the left is the entrance too.
Yeah, the bottom right there is their entry to their school, which was an all glass atrium. And when you walk in, like the office staff were in that large glass area. They did all of the, scanning of our cards and letting us into the building.
I think there's, around 150 students that are using this program right now, but it's open enrollment. There was one person from Johnston that was there, and I have a feeling when people find out about this, there's going to be a lot, because if I was a high school student and was interested in STEM, man, I'd be there just like that. It was neat. As you can see, this is a small conference room on the left-hand side. There's lots of flexible furniture. People, and I like this because I personally feel that all students can't learn at a desk, and they can be comfortable wherever they're at here. And we need to address the needs of all of our students. So I think that's a good thing. On the right-hand side, you can see that there's they put up a whiteboard, which there's numerous ones in the facility. I asked, where's all the paper? They said, there's very little paper in this facility. We just write things down. We put it in our, electronic storage. And again, I think this is something we need to think about in the future, because I think paper is going the way of the wind, really. So.
And like Marcy said, one of the things we kind of liked in this facility, a lot of the outside walls, like these type of walls here between the classrooms, were all whiteboard material. And the students and the staff were definitely utilizing those. Directional signage projects. They had just had the week before we were there, their community open house showcasing the facility. So they had a lot of different explanations about the various classrooms and spaces. The other cool thing they did in their process, every room or different learning area in their facility had a name, and those names came from their student body. Some of them were pretty creative, some of them were pretty obvious. They had a green room and it was all green, but some cool names and neat things at this
the
space.
brokerage. Those are people that want to be going to financial planning, and they were busily working at their computers, looking at the Dow Jones average and so forth. And so
I think there's a picture of that.
Yeah, I think we could put that. Yeah.
Just like in here, again, a lot of little individualized working spaces similar to this type of building. And one other thing we noted was the amount of available click-ins and access for technology.
And all the students were on task. They all seemed busy. Nobody was at loose ends or anything. I was happy to see that. You can see that all of the doors to the learning labs, which surround the outside of the commons, our garage doors made out of glass, so that you can see through, and it affords a really light environment that I think endorses creativity myself. I don't know what this room was.
This was one of their science and technology classes. I think this one was the one we were looking at the 3D printer. I don't know which classes were in there all the time, but another variation on a learning space, the kind of a little more one-on-one type learning space. This was in its own little room. This was one of their science labs. This space was huge. It was probably the size of this entire open area with all their science setups.
Isaiah Tilton went with us. He wasn't able to be here tonight, but he said, "Oh, they way overbuilt this space." but I think we're looking to the future, and this is only less than 6 months into it, so I think it'll fill up, and they think so too. So.
This is one of their exercise science classrooms.
This is really interesting. On this day, there was a guy doing bench pressing, and they were doing something with his muscle so that a coach could tell if they're using the muscle to failure. Yeah. I don't know how you would do that, but they were figuring it out. So
More traditional type learning space. And again, you'll note all the whiteboards everywhere. This was part of the brokerage room that we were talking about. Again, the garage doors and kind of the big open spaces. A lot of the doors were open most of the time, out into that middle area, people coming and going. Another big, bright, open area. I think this was
That's a shop area. You can see to the right there was some kind of a vice.
This was a production room. I don't know. They were doing like robotics, I think, in this classroom at this time.
I think actually this is the brokerage.
Yep, and this is the other half of that classroom.
I don't know where all the guys went that were sitting there.
They ran away when we got the camera.
Shy guys.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the two biggest takeaways we had from this was the flexibility, both in the spaces and in the furniture. We were blown away by the variety of furniture. They were like the walking school furniture catalog because every space.
I've seen things I have never seen before.
Oh my goodness. And if you want to see, we had over 130 photos from this building, and we took pictures of all the furniture because it was unbelievable how different each room was and how the kids were utilizing all of it. I don't think there was much that they didn't like, so
I love it.
it was
It'll
just
be
neat
like
to
our
see.
own little furniture store down, and we'll take a visit down there. We're picking furniture.
Yeah, exactly,
Pick it out,
exactly.
yes.
It was beautiful too, and it was crazy colors, but I didn't find it offensive at all. In fact, one of the conference rooms was all red, but that was the one that
Yeah, we
was red.
saw that one. Yep.
They liked it, so.
Exactly. So.
I'll note, Marcy's talked about the lack of students there right now. They have 400 students currently off-site,
Right.
co-located in businesses, and they're
Oh,
going to
okay.
pull them back in the fall. So it'll look very different come August, September with all
When
of
they
the
come
bustle
back in.
of
And I know that's one
those
thing she had
programs.
said they were really looking forward to is right now they're forced to send all of their students out. So they have to have enough time to go, to East Village or into downtown, into other parts of Waukee. And those students travel a pretty fair distance sometimes to interact with those business partners. In the future now, they'll have space here for the business partners to come to them. And they'll be able to host things. They were getting ready for another event, community event that was going to utilize their big hub area. And I think that's a really good opportunity for their community to showcase this space that they've spent lots and lots of money and time planning. So.
I just want to say thank you to Veronica and Marcy too for taking of your time to do this. You were community members, just, it doesn't.
Yeah, it was
Thank
fun.
you very
Fun
much.
away. Yep,
Yeah.
it's been fun to explore and get into the educational realm. It's not, we learned a lot of different things about what's current in education trends that, we just read about in the paper. We don't really get to see it in practice. So
It's
it's
nice
fun.
to see the real thing, for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
I told the group that we had 20 minutes for the presentation and
Yeah.
10 for questions. I'm guessing we're probably at 18 minutes now, so.
Over, you're 18
We aren't going to
minutes
sit
over
down
your
if that's what
20.
you're hoping for.
We're okay.
I'm Renee
Then
Boss.
you're fine, keep going.
We're fine. We consider the.
None of the schools I visited are on the slideshow, but of course I'll piggyback on anything Jake has to say.
I'm Jake Gassman, I'm the high school band director. We were tasked with talking about the auditoriums and the music spaces we saw and experienced, and I know Dr. Cox has opened it up to us as well, maybe the first week of June, getting around to some schools in Iowa that are our size that have recently opened auditoriums too, so I'm hoping we can continue doing some exploring in Iowa here. We definitely saw some trends and we saw some great variation. The variation we saw was whether or not there was a balcony in the auditorium. This was, I believe, St. Michael Albertsville, and they had built their auditorium to be a community as well as a school auditorium. Their goal was to bring in outside groups, and so they had, I think, 1,300 seats in their auditorium. I think this is Chanhassen. Chanhassen was one level, and they were between 800 and 900 seats, I believe. And I know there's been a lot of talk about how many seats we want in the auditorium for the music staff and for the theater staff. We're much more concerned about what's happening on the stage and behind the stage. Lots of fly space. You can see very tall ceilings on here. Storage off on the sides. For example, our stage currently, my band of 47, we performed a piece this last Monday that had a piano part, and we couldn't use our grand piano because we couldn't fit the 47 kids and the grand piano on the stage at the same time. So we really appreciated the stage space that they had. I saw a great variety of orchestra pits. Some of them that were shown to me from, I think, Ballard, they had removable seats in the front row that they could put their pit out in front of the stage. Many of the larger auditoriums we saw had a removable, their pit was lowered, and then they had a removable stage that went over top of the pit. As you can see, here's backstage. They all had dressing rooms and makeup rooms right off of the stage so that the kids didn't have to change in the cafeteria or didn't have to travel very far. They could do quick changes. Many of them had the bay door in the middle picture. Again, they were community-minded. They wanted to bring in outside groups. So if they were bringing in equipment, they could throw this bay door open and have plenty of room to move equipment in.
Even though as the band directors in the district, something that we're very conscious about is the storage space that we would need for costumes, for drama, for speech performances. The equipment needs to be stored in a safe environment, and that is something that we obviously are lacking now. And
that was a great thing to see on these visits, how there was ample space for storage of equipment, shells, things of that nature. So.
There are also some very obvious themes within the music rehearsal spaces. You can see the flat floors, large square rooms, lots of acoustical tiles, very high ceilings. I know Jerry Mitchell did some decibel reading in the band room just recently with Mrs. Boss's 78 piece middle school band, and also I had my drum line run a rehearsal, and Dr. Cox has that information as well as Mr. Johnson, and we're right at that line where decibels get a little worrying, and we have a pretty low ceiling in the band room. So these nice high ceilings allow for that quite a bit. This is the orchestra room at Alexandria. Again, they have some clouds up at the top. That's the acoustical tiling in the ceiling, and lots of that high ceiling. They also had at Alexandria, they had acoustically treated Brazilian rosewood floors.
That the kids weren't allowed to wear their shoes on.
They had to take their shoes off, or they chose to take their shoes off so they wouldn't scratch the floor. That was the orchestra director described that as a great luxury that they were able to have. And again, you can see the choir chose to build risers in, but they had that flat floor so they could adjust the risers as they needed. I didn't get a chance to talk to the choir director here, but if they had show choir, they could move those risers out of the way. It allowed for much more flexibility. On the band side of things, to have a jazz band set up differently. Concert bands have a much more curved setup. The jazz band has a much flatter setup, and the risers we have in our current room are about halfway in between what we want on both of those. So to have a flexible space for that rehearsal space would be great. Here's, before we go to, there's that rosewood floor. One thing that we saw a great variety of was how the storage rooms were used. Alexandria did a great job of using those storage rooms to put in between rehearsal rooms to help with instrument storage, uniform storage, to help with sound acoustics, sound dampening between the different rooms. They also had sand poured into the actual walls to help with that. There were other, St. Michael Albertville had their setup was a separate room that all the music rooms were off of, that they used their storage for. And then Chanhassen again had a different room. They had a much more traditional, the instrument storage room was right off of the rehearsal room. Excuse me. But no matter what, they all had wonderful double doors. Every entrance and exit to the music facility, whether it went outside or went to the hallway or went to the auditorium, all those entrances and exits were double doors, so they were able to fit those large instruments through. Our 32-inch timpani can't go out our main back door. We have to take it through the school. It gets a little interesting sometimes. So I thought that was a wonderful thing as well, that they had those double doors.
Something else that we saw on our visits were the great use of practice room space, that there was enough practice room space for even small ensembles to be held in there, and those rooms were also acoustically treated right in the instructor's office hallway or right adjacent to the performing or to the rehearsal rooms. So that's something when we get to that stage, we have a lot more information on that as well.
Yeah, and I would add to that same thing. Just right around a quarter of our curriculum is solo and ensemble work, and having space to have our kids all rehearsing in the same wing. Currently, when we hit solo and ensemble, we're using the conference room. We've used the teacher's lounge before. Mrs. Western sends kids down to the middle school practice rooms, just over off the 8th grade wing. We've used Mr. Lundberg's ag shop before for rehearsals. And to have that enough practice rooms for these soloists and small ensembles to rehearse in the same area would be wonderful. This was at Chanhassen. I thought it was a great addition off of their main commons area, they had this stage built, and again, it wasn't any wasted space in that building. They were taking advantage of everything. I asked one of the students how often it's employed, and they've had speech performances there, speech rehearsals. I could see the jazz band coming out and performing, our vocal jazz group. This was a great potential venue for a lot of small ensemble performances.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, 2 more people. I've never used Jake's band room for hog-weigh-ins, though. Okay, real quick.
There is a limit to shared spaces.
So I'm Vaughn Connect. I'm a junior. None of the visits I went on are in the slides, but my main thing that I did not like and don't think would be good was the use of lockers, because we don't use them as much as I've noticed. The one thing that I did like was they did have them, but they were just little bunches throughout, and they had long, long hallways that Mr. Lundberg had added at the very end of our slide, and it wasn't used. So.
And special thanks to Fallon and Isaiah. They've been so faithful about coming to the meetings and doing that. I think that's awesome. They've had their input. And if you know Isaiah, every time he goes on a school visit, he's got downloaded a drafting program. And he has the school already designed. So.
So when we talk about the programming, I just got back from 2 days of standards-based grading training with Rick Warmelli, and there's no way that you can separate the building from the programming. When you start looking at standards-based grading, I told Mr. Johnson I could teach a lot longer in that type of an environment. And so when we started looking at these pictures and we came back, here's how I would envision it. You would take, in our buildings, we take all of the walls, we knock them down, okay? And we're not just knocking down the walls between the classrooms, we're knocking down the walls between departments. We're no longer looking at our school as, this is 9th grade, okay, you have 9 months to learn this. School's out for the summer, welcome back in the fall, but we still haven't done this. So we look at it as, what is it that we need them to learn? What are they going to retain and be able to come back and use that knowledge to further their learning? And then how can we see the evidence of that learning? You can't do that when you're confined to a small space. I need to be able to work with the math teacher because I teach a lot of math. I'm not a good math teacher. I probably don't teach it like it should be, but we use a lot of math. I can use the art department. I could use the business department. That's what it needs to be. That's what it needs to be. So we just got to knock out all the walls on all the things. It's not 9th grade. It's I'm at this level. I'm at this level. We talk a lot. And we were talking this weekend, and I said, it's like when I teach child development, I tell the kids there's a range that kids learn to walk at. 1 year is average. We don't say to a 1-year-old, you're not walking, you're a failure. No, we give them what they need to get them to the next part, whatever it is that they need to do. So that's my speech.
And I wrote mine down, so I won't be here long. Open classroom, shared facilities, not being territorial, collaboration between disciplines, and eliminating hallways is my take from serving on the 21st Century School Task Force. I struggle separating facilities from pedagogy. Open spaces, shared spaces, areas that can be changed to meet the needs of a new project. 21st century teaching needs to happen in a 21st century facility. It encourages project-based learning and allows teachers to collaborate without worrying about where can we find space big enough. Okay, all these pictures, I don't care about those. Here's my favorite picture coming up. Even though these are really nice ag facilities. We'll talk about that later. Right here, we visited some schools in the Midwest, 5 years old, okay? And look at these pictures. How do they look different than our current high school that was built 55 years ago? Or even 500 North Grand that was built 90 years ago, okay? These school districts paid a lot of money for a lot of concrete, a lot of block, and they're beautifully painted. And I kind of estimated the kids spend about 7% of their day in these halls. And now just stop and look at this. And I think Charles City has it figured out. I mean, so I think this means a lot right here, more than any of the other pictures I saw. This tells me that we're doing the right thing by looking around right here. Geez, I'm done.
I'm Sarah Vanderwerf, and I'm the high school secretary, and I was just so honored to be asked to be part of this group. And it's been really fun to see all the different types of schools that we had gone to. And I got to go on to 2 trips, so I saw Alexandria, which was the highlight of my year. But I saw good things in the other schools that we went to too. So I guess my job is to kind of just wrap up. The common themes that we found in the places that we liked, and even the places that maybe didn't speak to us as much, but we pulled good things out of each place that we went. The common themes that I'm seeing, and you've probably already figured all this out and you don't need me to reiterate it for you, but flexible spaces and having the space fit with the curriculum, with the programming. It needs to be flexible so you can, if you change how you're teaching something, you can change your space. The open light and airy spaces that we see. You know, one of the, when we went to Duluth, it was kind of rainy, yucky, snowy, and Alexandria was the same way, but with these big windows and everything, you just felt good. You know, in Minnesota, you probably don't get a lot of sunshine, so the windows kind of helped with that, you know, with that vitamin D thing. The movable furniture. One of the places, and I can't even remember, it was probably Alexandria, they had in their classrooms, they could move their furniture at a moment's notice. And it was all on wheels, and it was all really, you know, easily reconfigured to have more of a lecture type classroom, or you could work in groups, or it could be, you know, something similar to the fabric furniture that we have here for more lounging or reading or, you know, stuff like that. So the movable furniture is a key, I think, with this. And Fallon kind of talked about the locker, no locker debate, and we probably still are going to need to talk about that. But we saw, most of the places we saw, they required them, they couldn't take their backpacks to class, which we have now in the high school. They can take their backpacks. But if you have flexible spaces with movable furniture and everything, you may not want a bunch of backpacks, you know, on the floor. Might hinder in that. So I think that's a debate that is probably going to be ongoing. We saw quite a few places that had a fitness center that was shared with the community. And this, you know, I know we've talked about this with the Y too, maybe doing something with the Y. But I think that's a real plus too for the school and for the community to use those, to share those spaces. Outdoor learning spaces. One of the schools that we went to, the art teacher said, we really need some outdoor area. So if we're doing raku firing, or if we're, you know, doing something, we can take it outside and then it's not messy and having to clean it up on the inside. And just for like today, you know, it was so beautiful out, and you could take kids out and have some learning outside. The design build spaces that Mr. Johnson talked about, the school store, every school we went to, every single school had a school store. And one of them that I really liked, they used student-produced things that they sold in their store. So for example, they had made some tiles with the school logo on it. They had taken an old gym floor out of another place and made cutting boards out of them, and with the school logo engraved on them. So I thought that was pretty cool because they were using, and I believe it was the business class or FBLA or somebody actually ran the store. So was integrating their learning with and having a product that they could sell. The special ed coffee shop, which we have here, and I think we should continue that because I think that's an amazing opportunity for those kids. And then for us that like coffee. Internships and apprenticeships for CTE. We saw a couple of these schools that did this and integrated that, the learning with actually going out and doing that. A couple of the schools actually had certification for welding and all kinds of stuff that they could get right there at the school. At Alexandria, they had a CNA program where they could be certified as a CNA right there, and they had the labs. I think there was a slide in here that we probably kind of went by really fast, but they had the mannequins in there that they would, take their pulse and draw blood and all that kind of stuff on those. So that was pretty cool. The auditorium space, with which Jake and Renee have already kind of gone over, the black box theater, which we saw in a couple of them, which would be, that's kind of a want, really, but it would be a neat place to have drama classes, and you could use it as a mini lecture hall as well. The secure entrance and exit, most of the schools that we went to, you could not get into the school without coming into the office or coming into a space where you would be checked in, so to speak. So right now at the high school, they ring the bell, we look at the little teeny tiny camera and say, come on in, but they can just walk right in. They don't have to stop at the office. They can just whiz right past the door. So I kind of, being the secretary, it would be kind of nice to be able to corral those people a little bit before they can get into the building. And we were talking about this today, actually. I think Mr. Wolf and I were talking about this. It would be kind of nice to have it so that students couldn't just walk out the door without checking out through the office. So I don't know how we do that in a design feature, but I think that that would be very helpful. And then also the use of technology for staff and students. A robust wireless network, and different ways of using technology. Chanhausen used the little flex time with they would scan in and out of areas, and then the school would know exactly where that student was because they had to scan into those places. So these are just some common themes that we saw, that we liked, that we want to go forward with. And I guess, am I it? Am I the last hurrah? I think we went over 20 minutes, sorry.
That's okay. Sitting on the school board is an endurance test, too.
Times 3 and well worth it,
Yeah.
so, thank you. Any comments or questions about the task force report?
I want to thank everybody. I think we all would like to thank everybody for their participation and your time and dedication. And you've all learned so much, and we've shared all of this knowledge back and forth with each other. And I think you're going to be a great asset as we move ahead to the next phase of design. And hopefully you'll all show up for that too, because I think we're going to teach our architects a few things about what we want. And And as you've noted, I think the process in building our middle school that we all went through with the architects and visiting schools and listening to what our students and our teachers wanted from the space have really put us light years ahead of so many of these schools that we visited. So I'll let everybody else talk.
Where did you go for visits?
I went to Alexandria, High Tech High, and I went to Duluth.
Okay. I went to Gilbert and Ballard just a week ago, and we mainly looked at their open spaces, looked at their auditoriums, their music rooms. Kind of they all wish they had more space for those areas, and as you move forward looking at other auditoriums or music spaces, give me a call. I'll go with. Jason?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, most of my comments I said after the Alexandria trip, that was in Duluth also, but Alexandria was the one that really stood out to me and the number of things there. With every time that we get staff up here, they give us presentations, or if staff have gone to professional learning or whatever, they always come back and they talk about their ride in the van and how all of this conversation and collaboration and all that stuff just gets so accomplished at that time when you're confined in the van on the road. We had the same thing, going from Duluth to Alexandria and Alexandria back home. And, so we got to experience that as board members, listening to our staff go on and on about these things. And it really gets you excited, gets your blood flowing for, boy, we've got some great staff, and we've got some great, things that we're gonna be able to implement here in the future, and this will be a big part of it. But even next year, it's like these trips, we're gonna see impacts the rest of this year and forever on because of these trips too, not just building stuff. So it was an awesome experience.
I'll piggyback off that just for a second. The day that I went on my trip, the 4+ hours in the van compared to the 2+ hours that we toured the buildings, the van conversation was just as valuable or more so than the tours. Again, listening to the staff, conversing with the staff, conversing with the student who went along that day, and as Mr. Lundberg said, had his laptop out, and by the time he got home, or we got home, he had what in his mind our new high school should look like already on his laptop. So yeah, the rides and the conversation are just as valuable as the actual tours. Robin?
Went to Alexander, Duluth, and High Tech High. And I know we set out a couple years ago talking about how we were going to do this and that we needed to do this. And I've always been a cheerleader for trying to get to High Tech High. At one point, I had gone to Dr. Cox and I said, please let me buy my own ticket. I need to go there. I had done a lot of reading about it and had done a lot of studying on it, but I know from my own experience in my own life that there are certain things, the only way you're ever going to see it is to see it and to be there. I mean, I'm an artist, and I know the only way to see the art in Italy is to see the art in Italy. And that is exactly what High Tech High was for me. It was an amazing experience, and I know the 5 other people that were with me. It was quite an experience too. I mean, Jim can attest to that. At one point he looked at me and said, this is the worst day of my life. Only because I know I'm going to be retiring soon. I wish this was the first day of my teaching career. And that I had to go in the corner and cry a little bit after that one, because I thought, it's so true. I says, well, not only are we making an investment in looking for a building, but the investment we've made in our staff with these business and the programming is a total shock to me. I did not expect that. It's a bonus that I hadn't counted on, that I think even outweighs the building. I was thinking about the other day, at this point, even if it takes us however many years to get to a building point, what's going to happen with our education now is going to be amazing. And we're going to be able to plow forward with that and hopefully catch up with the building just as soon as we can. And I just am so proud of our teachers and so proud to be part of this district. And that's what's been shown to me this last couple of weeks over and over and over again. Thank you.
Very much so. So again, the task force work has been completed. We thank everyone who participated with that.
Well, I'll chime in as well.
Okay.
I intentionally was not going to go anywhere I went to High Tech High 5 years ago when I was working in the Waterloo Community School District, and so I'm so excited that we were able to send a team to go and see that. I did go to Gilbert and Ballard, and I'd been to Ballard previously, had not been to Gilbert yet, and I also was at Waukees Innovation and Learning Center for a meeting before we started our site visits, and that's a phenomenal place as well. I like what Mr. Lundberg said, or kind of the analogy he drew, and it was this, that so many times we walk through schools and we see hallways and we really don't give it a second thought until we've been some other place and seen differently, and now we look at that hall and say, wow, was this a missed opportunity? And so it's really impactful for me to listen to the stories from all of you who have been out on the site visits to see things and come back with a new perspective on what we should do in our building project as we move forward here in Charles City. The design process, I was in communication with our architect on Friday. It will be coming here soon, hopefully by the end of this month, otherwise by the first week of June. And so I'm excited for her to be able to see the presentation that we had tonight and to chat with our task force members and other community members about how we chart this path forward for Charles City Community Schools. So thank you again to the task force for all of the time and effort that you did put into it. Some long road trips, but certainly well worth it. And again, it's all about that process.
Yep.
All right, again, we thank the task force, and we will continue moving on forward with this process, with everything we heard tonight and what people have learned and shared on their trips. We'll move.
You gonna take a break? Or?
Take a break,
Let's take a 10-minute recess. We'll call the meeting back to order at 8:34 and move on to agenda item 10, the Iowa School Public Relations Award presentation.
Ooh, there they are. Now we know what to put in the trophy cases.
Maybe. There we go.
Good evening. I'm Justin DeVore with Communications and Community Engagement with the Charles City Community School District. I wanted to just give you a quick and brief update on some things with the department. The Iowa School Public Relations Association is a professional group that I belong to. They hold a fall conference and a spring conference. It's a colleague group. We rely on each other throughout the year to ask questions. We can turn to each other and say, hey, we have this going on in our district. What are you doing with this? And so we help other school PR folk, and then we also can turn to them for support as well. So we have a fall conference, we have a spring conference. The fall conference is all education. The spring conference is education plus some awards. This year's spring education was on infographics, website accessibility, which will be a long summer project, and leading change management and going live with Facebook. I also had the opportunity to go to Apex as well because I coordinated with my colleague there, and so I had a student-led tour, and can express some of the excitement after seeing that building as well that you just heard about with the 21st Century Task Force. So the Iowa School Public Relations Association with the spring conference also does awards. It's a nice opportunity for us to get a critique of our work from other professionals. It recognizes excellence in the district, and it represents districts all over the state of Iowa, and you can also see where you compete with your peers. Briefly, I'm going to go over the rules with you just so you are aware. There's a merit, an excellence, and a blue and gold award that you submit it in. You have a rubric. Your merit is 6 points to 7.9 points. 8 to 10 is excellence, and then blue and gold is the best in the category. And we also, when we submit awards, when we submit criteria, we compete in the same category as all of the large metro schools like Waterloo, West Des Moines, Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, and Waukee. My rule that I go by, not off of this page, but is we compete where we do the work. So, for example, the Estes video that you're all familiar with, we did not submit that because we did not do that work in-house. And so that's one of my rules that we go off of as well. So just to recap the awards for the department, the Iowa Big North press release received an award of merit in excellence in writing. That was for the fall rollout. We just had several things that we needed to cover from our initial rollout last spring. The award of merit for photography went to the department as well for this photo. And this was a STEM classroom, and it really shows quite a bit happening there. Our awards of excellence went to Dr. Cox, received the podcast and audio award for the American Education Week podcast. And this is a great opportunity to offer special thanks to KCHA as well, because they air those 60-second snapshots at absolutely no cost to the district. And then we also get quite a bit of time on Thursday mornings, every other Thursday morning as well. So for American Education Week, we produced 7 videos, and that series will also receive the Award of Excellence. And I was going to play one of those for you tonight, but you've had a lot tonight, so if you'd like to see those videos, we can certainly get you the link to that as well. This photograph of Tomb It May Concern of 8th graders cleaning headstones at Riverside Cemetery won the Award of Excellence as well. One of the neat things that we are able to do is tell great stories of all of the project-based learning that's happening here in the middle school. So the social media award, we brought home the Award of Excellence there. That was for the year-long efforts, and I mean, so many things to outline here, but the countdown to the Charles City Middle School grand opening, the first day of school, the Why I Teach campaign, which we actually suspended halfway through the campaign because of flooding. So the flooding coverage was also something that we pointed out. The Why I Teach campaign, we restarted that. The Thank a Principal campaign, the volleyball qualifying for state, media interviews on November 15th, the Golden Apple Award on November 15th, the American Education Week, November 13th through the 19th, the Food Service Media Day on December 1st, caroling December 15th, January 23rd, the school board meeting. There was just some interesting things that happened at the school board meeting. January 31st, legislative advocacy. February 7th, the flu tips that we put out. March 2nd, Comic Cafe, and March 4th through the 8th, the project-based learning trivia night. Also, one of the things that the judges noted on there was their love of the reading at night, the Facebook Live reading at night with Mrs. DeVore. The awards for public engagement. This is the one that means the most to me. And so it really shows that the department has direct student impact, and the building construction, the grand opening, the SAI presentation, the IASB advocacy training, the media day, once again for school lunches, the Why I Teach campaign, the American Education Week videos, the flooding video, the flooding PIO when we were drafted for that, the Lieutenant Governor visiting the Charles City Middle School, the Iowa Big North information that we consistently put out, Mrs. DeVore on Facebook Live, capital advocacy, the Community Needs Assessment Survey. The public tours of the Charles City Middle School, the storytelling on social media, the weekly podcast, the twice monthly KCHA interviews, the media news coordination, photography that we consistently use for telling our stories, website updates, recording fine arts concerts, recording school board meetings, relationship building with just people in the community that need to have questions answered or anything like that. The Iowa Big North teaching website development, speaking with classes. I'm sure there are things I forgot, and I will also point out that this does not include the public access network responsibilities or Obamacare responsibilities on this list. Because when school PR folks get together, they don't care about Obamacare. So, 5 of our awards qualified for the illustrious Blue and Gold Award. Once again, it's the best in the category throughout the state, and it's kind of a Samson versus Goliath scenario when we are up against the big folks in the state. So you can see those. Those are 2 of those, the Blue and Gold Award for public engagement and also for social media. But wait, there's more. This is something that spoke to me. There was a new unannounced award this year based on the awards for the evening. They did not announce that they were doing this. They just said, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to tally up all the awards. We're going to assign them points. This is something that Iowa Association of ISPRA did on their own. These are the top 4 qualifiers across the state. And the fact that we were on this list is impressive. We did not take this award, though. We were beat out by West Des Moines with their staff of 3 people. So, obviously, we have something to shoot for next year. These awards, I feel, add a tremendous amount of credibility to the department. We tell the stories of student and staff. Without the students here, without the staff here, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So parents and students have this new expectation of the communication services that we deliver, and I feel that we have really raised that bar. I'm excited to work with you to continue to expand our communications footprint in the community, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just have a comment. I started the meeting with my routine rant on the negativity of Facebook and, the stuff that goes on a number of times there. But I'm dang thankful that our district has, gotten to a level where we're putting out some really quality stuff that's going on in our district on social media. So, without that, in the absence of that, the only thing that would be out there is all of the negative things that people say and do and whatever else, so.
Which it was just a few years back.
Yeah, which it was not that long ago that it was, just that way. So I'm thankful for the time that you put into this and the time that, we've really, as a district and everyone started to really put this good stuff out there, and the response we're getting now from the community. That Adulting 101 class, that Facebook post, a lot of times I go onto those in my personal thing and I just click the drop down and say, turn on notifications for this post. So anytime someone comments on it or likes it or whatever, I get a notification, and I'm still, several times today, more and more people commenting on it. I go and read the comments. They're all so positive and so great. It's just an awesome thing to see. So thank you for all of that, and thanks, and keep up the good work on that. So.
Yeah, bravo, Justin. I'm pleased to see that 2 of those awards have your name on them, as well as the school district, because, you are a staff. You refer to the department won these awards, but you are a department of 1. And so, you're a great asset not only to the school district, but to the city and the county as well. We're all lucky to have your talent.
Thank you.
Just want to say thank you to Dr. Cox, too, that 2 years ago, you saw a need and you took a chance, gave us a recommendation. I think we put the right person in the position, obviously. So thank you, Justin.
Congratulations.
We continue to do good work, and you continue to do good work, and we do thank you for everything you do. And I'll go along with the other comments that the social media is good and bad, and as long as we can all learn to use it in a positive way and continue getting the message out that needs to be out, I think we'll be okay. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 11, School Board Recognition Month. Dr. Cox.
Quick. Just pass him to Lorraine, she'll pass it.
He's gonna go to the microphone. He has a microphone here.
Not so fast. Yeah, it's easier to address the board when I can see all of you instead of having to constantly turn back and forth to look at all of your faces. So this is School Board Recognition Month. We put out information on our Twitter page, and we'll do it on Facebook as well, that talks about the countless hours, and tonight would be a good example. And then you've alluded to some of the many other hours that you put in as board members, all of it at no pay. It's done as a volunteer service to the community. And so this is our chance to at least say thank you for all the work that you do. As part of that, I wanted to just take a moment to go through some of the highlights over the past year. And this is really just from July 1 of 2016 until now. And so here's what I've developed as far as board accomplishments in the 2016-17 school year. So our school board was instrumental in opening a $19.6 million 21st century middle school attached to the high school in August. In November, you were recognized by the Iowa Association of School Boards as one of 7 school boards out of 333 Iowa school boards to earn the Better Boardsmanship Team Award. President Dite and I were invited to co-present a session titled From Toxic to Teamwork, One School Board's Journey with Dr. Sam Miller, who's the Chief Administrator of Area 267, at the Iowa Association of School Boards pre-conference. Board member Maycumber and I and Justin co-presented a session called Swimming with the Sharks at the IASB convention, all about advocacy. November and December, the board hosted the public, or had a social, for both board members and the public to interact with State Senator Waylon Brown and our State Representative Todd Pritchard. In January, the board approved a new strategic plan for the district that encompasses the next 5 years. You appointed a student director to the board. Very few school boards in Iowa have one of them. You bought 20 acres of land out of the floodplain so that we could construct a baseball and softball field that we can play on all summer long. You created a life-threatening allergies policy and regulations to accompany it. You lobbied at the state capitol on educational issues, and unlike the previous 2 years where we went on our own, you also brought along teams from 4 neighboring school districts to enhance that impact. In February, you established a 21st Century Schools Task Force, and tonight you've heard the great work that's taken place over the last 8 weeks as we look ahead to Phase 2. In April, you implemented a shadowing opportunity to get a firsthand glimpse as to what goes on in our classrooms. And that's really just me trying to capture, with a little bit of thought, what you've done. I'm sure there's more. So on behalf of a grateful school district, I do want to congratulate you and thank you for your service to the students and to the community here in Charles City. So I have certificates for each of our board members, and now I just realized I've forgotten to sign them. Let me sign them and then I'll get them to you. Apologize for that. But again, thank you, and for those who are left here in the audience, we all express our thanks for the work that you do.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 12, Estes Construction Contract.
We've got Scott Scheller here tonight. If you have questions on the contract, that's part of your packet.
Anyone have any questions for?
How many pages? It was
It was a lot.
it was a lot. Figure out who's bringing it down.
Nothing?
I do not
Is
have
there a
any
motion?
questions. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the AIA standard form of agreement and the general conditions of the contract as revised between the Charles City Community School District and Estes Construction Manager for Phase 2 renovation and/or reconstruction agreement as presented.
I'll second it.
Agenda item 12 for the Estes Construction Contract has been moved and seconded as presented. Any other comments or questions from the board? Comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Maycumber?
Yes.
Winteringer?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes. Motion carried 4-0. Agenda item 13, the west parking lot construction contract. You have a copy of the contract with Wix Construction that has been worked out and the recommendation. Any questions about the contract? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve a contract with Wix Construction Incorporated for the west parking lot construction project at Charles City Middle School for $138,854.05 as presented.
No second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract for Wix Construction. Do you have any additional things you'd like to add for this contract?
No, everything's good. Everything's good with the contract, the bonds, the insurance. So the next step would be for the board to approve it. And then following that, the next thing that we would do would be to hold a pre-construction conference before they start construction. I look for that to be someplace mid to the end of June. And I don't know if you have in your packets their schedule. They're looking at starting a little bit later in July. I know at the last meeting, Jim had mentioned RAGBRAI, and we did make provisions for that in the contract language. So we didn't prohibit them from working on the July 26th and 27th, but we did have restrictions for what they can do and not do on the site. So those are kind of the next steps.
Excellent.
Roll call vote?
Maycumber?
Yes.
Winnering?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 4-0.
And then if I could, Scott, I did have an announcement that I wanted to make to the board. I'll be retiring in 2 months.
Oh, boy.
And,
Wait a minute.
I don't think that was in any agreement.
well, so anyway, what I wanted to say, first of all, I wanted to thank the district for giving us the opportunity to provide service to you, and I hope that we can do that in the future as well. I want to assure you folks that there are very capable people behind me that have worked on your projects that are still going to be here. Working out, in the process of working out the possibility of me staying on part-time to see my projects through. So, you know, I may be around yet for the end of the projects, because I do have a number of them that probably won't be wrapped up until August. So
Cool.
I'm willing to do that because I want to help all my clients. So
That would be appreciated.
Yeah.
the other thing that I wanted to say was I wanted to acknowledge your staff. You guys have a great staff, and I think you know that. Especially, I work with Terry O'Brien and Jerry Mitchell for the most part. And I'm sure, as you know, they're both blue chip people, and I really appreciate working with them. I think in the last 2 or 3 years, I've had the opportunity to work on all of your campuses. I think Terry's got me about 95% trained, and I'm hoping in the next 2 months she can get the last 5%. So anyway, I just thanks again, and I hope that we can continue the relationship. I just wanted to tell you guys in person, and I appreciate everything, and we look forward to getting the parking lot done for you.
Excellent.
So,
Thank
any
you.
questions?
Best of luck.
Congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. 14.
Agenda item 14, the collective bargaining agreement. A settlement was reached. You have copies of that in your packet with a total package increase of 1.69% with the Educational Services Association.
Motion to approve the 1-year collective bargaining agreement with the Charles City Community Educational Services Association, a package increase of 1.69%.
I'll second that.
Agenda item 14 has been moved and seconded as presented. Any other questions? Comments? Roll call vote, please.
Winnering?
Yes.
Walker?
Yep.
Maycumber?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 4-0. Agenda item 15, hopefully a brief financial report for the month of April.
As always, a very brief report. Hot lunch, you know, we're down, our balance is down. We'll be reviewing lunch prices, coming back with lunch price, and the Taher agreement should be coming up hopefully at the next meeting. Transportation Center, we have around 482,000 yet to pay on the contract, but then after that, most of our expenses will be in for the year that we approved. And last, we sent out open enrollment packets for our employees for our insurance notices and information, so.
Any questions for Mrs. O'Brien?
No.
Motion.
I move to accept the April 2017 financial reports as presented.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the April 17 financial reports. Roll call vote, please.
Walker?
Yes.
Maycumber?
Yes.
Wienering?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 4-0. Agenda item 16, the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Roll call vote, please.
Maycumber?
Yes.
Wienering?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 4-0. Agenda item 17, correspondence. You have the enrollment summary. Any questions about that? Agenda item 18, important upcoming dates.
Quite a few next week as the final end of the year celebrations take place. So music awards, senior sports banquet, class day, baccalaureate, those types of things. Again, May 22nd, we'll be up in Caldwell for a board meeting, 6:30 at the community center.
And did we end up with a date for Carrie Lane graduation yet?
It's the 27th.
On
It's
Saturday?
on Saturday. I don't have my phone with me, though. I don't recall the time.
Okay, we will get that then by the next
We'll
board
announce that on the
meeting.
22nd.
Okay. Having no other business to come before the board, we will adjourn.